Hey there everyone, welcome to Rudy's Rocking Roundtable with myself, Rudy Chetty, and the lovely Tara Walker. We've got customers here from all over the world, and we're here to talk about building IoT applications in the industrial and health safety regions.
Okay,
so,
wait. We can't talk about anything first until I get this off my chest.
Oh, okay, well.
If you notice, as I stand up here with these gentlemen, that all of them have something in common, hence a name tag. Do you see that they forgot me with the name tag? Okay, now you can continue. All right.
Well, I'll say this, look, we were supposed to actually have a roundtable too, but we sent the memo to the props team and it was on a rectangular piece of paper. That's why we have a rectangle instead of a circle. So it must have been the same person about the name tags, Tara. Anyway, let's move on to the other members of our panel. We've got Eric Martinez, who's the founder and CEO of Modjoul, and we have Sergejus Baranovas, who is a senior product development engineer with AWS IoT.
You nailed that.
You did.
So guys, it must be my lovely South African accent.
Yes.
So, tell me, Eric, what has made AWS IoT the go-to choice for Modjoul from the IoT ecosystem perspective?
I think the first thing that we thought about is how we can just use all the components without having to go outside and use any other vendors, any other support. So we can send our payload off of our device that I'm wearing and immediately goes into the cloud. The data gets formatted, the features get enhanced, and we provide the analytics without ever leaving the AWS platform.
I think for people on Twitch, you want to tell what is Modjoul in the first place.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. Doodle intro, show them your...
Like, we are using IoT and
maybe take out your
maybe we should switch here.
They're like, that's really nice. Who are you and what are you? Okay, great.
It's like,
let's try this again.
All right,
Can we get a below the belt shot? Or
yeah, so Modjoul produces a wearable that fits into your loops of your pants. It's equipped with 8 sensors as well as GPS that tracks the location, motion, and environment of industrial manufacturing warehouse workers today. So that's what we do, and we utilize your AWS platform to make that happen.
And as we actually learned in our talk earlier in the day, is that the belt only comes in a certain size, and apparently I'm not large enough is the word.
He's been working out
like
really
I said,
well
Mom,
after work.
I'm not as fat as you think I am.
Wait, that's hilarious. Okay, so this, if people wanted to, what is the key word usage of it? So I have this device. Can I identify where someone is? Tell me what the device mainly does, so people can know, check it out.
Right. Yeah. So I think the big feature of the device, it does the lower lumbar. The number one accident injury for manufacturing workers is the sprain of the lower back, and it basically gives you all of the analytics around that. So it tells you your bend, your angle of your back when you're bending, how fast you moved up, if you bent with a twist, and basically also does your count for the whole day. The neat thing that we're able to do with the platform as well is it detects the vibration. And when we use that vibration, we can actually tell if somebody's sitting in a chair or sitting on a forklift. And from that, we can provide telematic devices and just tell them how well they drive that forklift. So it gives a lot of different opportunities what we can do. And then once we get into the cloud, the amount of analytics that we can then start getting entangled with other type of human capital systems, work management systems that understand what does it actually cost to do an activity in a manufacturing floor.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Is this, so let's talk about the IoT love here. So you said, okay, obviously you have a device, you need to get that information into the cloud next scale. Can you talk about the pieces of your solution that you run on AWS and the core for that?
Yeah, and then I'll ask these guys for some hands as well on that. But, they can help me out.
Okay.
So we use the IoT Ingestion Engine, so our payload gets sent into the IoT Ingestion Engine. From there, it runs through Kinesis, and where we basically filter, enhance the data. And one of the things that you realize about sensor data is just kind of not consistent sometimes, and it can produce weird values. And so you got to have a way to clean up those filtered, that sensor data and make sure that your models work properly. After that, we use the IoT analytics to calculate, enhance, provide our metrics to the end user. You want to add kind of some of the pieces?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the keyword analytics, and we've got Sergejus here. Come on,
what kind of?
Oh, we did earlier?
And I asked you, I was like, okay, is there a cool custom we talked about, you couldn't. You have him here.
He
He
didn't
didn't
tell
talk
you?
about it. He didn't tell me. So
Is
got
he-
him here.
He stole
Sorry.
my name tag and he didn't talk about us?
I'm just. I didn't get a
Amazing.
name tag.
Oh,
But okay, but
my
yeah.
bad. I don't
Okay,
agree
but
with
yeah.
that.
So we talked about the filtering of that data, and
Yeah.
so that it can be actionable. Talk about working with these guys and getting that actually to happen.
I think there are two parts, and as earlier today we talked, the filtering part, Eric mentioned that sensors sending crappy data, and pardon for my English.
Right, well,
We
the
can beat that
magnetometer,
in post,
I mean,
right?
if you think about anything that has a magnetometer, it's basically influenced by metal or magnetic force, electronic forces. And so sometimes that data just needs to get cleaned up.
So one thing that these guys have to do is filter and get rid of any data that is actually erroneous. So that's one of the things that we are helping with. And afterwards is basically the analytics part. And there are multiple models Eric and his team are running for detecting all the movements, etc. You can elaborate on the models,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, so we detect 6 activities, and then from those 6 activities, we use 37 metrics from those 6 activities.
Yeah.
And what we do is a double layer random forest model. So the first model is a high level classification of the activity. The second layer of the model basically puts that activity from, say, where somebody's static, and then it puts it into sitting or standing. And then we run heuristics or simple rules engines to basically classify the metrics to understand how long somebody's sitting for. Are they slouching? Are they forward? Are they talking on the phone? Anything like that we can basically figure out.
Could we extend that to something like helping people with their golf swing?
So one of the neat things, of course, is the gyro, right? So there's a gyro on the belt, and the gyro does measure your hip turn.
Just give you some space. Okay,
You're
saying if you're teeing up and you're just gonna.
Yeah, you
So-
move those
Yeah.
hips.
In
Okay.
other words, someone needs to practice more if they need this device. Okay. Moving on.
Practice more, practice less, potato.
Yeah, so no, it's a very complicated engine. So we're sampling data. We're moving data every second of the day. We're classifying what a worker does. And so for that second, we said he was bending. And from once we said he was bending, we then run the metrics on top of that to say, how much did he bend his back? How fast did he bend his back? Did he bend the back with a twist?
That is some golf swing.
And then we do that every second. So if a worker works 8 hours a day, 60 minutes, 60 seconds, that's over 28,800 calculations we do for just one worker in a day. And then if it's a scalable solution, nobody just has one worker.
Right.
People have hundreds and thousands of workers that those calculations have to be done by.
And you guys ask us all the time about what are some real world things that this can actually, what can actually happen with this? What can you do with this? We were talking about it earlier. You can't beat this one. If you think about it, tracking for an entire 24 hours and at scale, as we're talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands of workers, that's huge.
Well, what's really neat is the multi-tenancy too, as the IoT platform provides, right? So every company can have its own instance. And from those instances, you can then break it up again by supervisors, executives, directors, locations. And so it gives you a whole bunch of opportunity
Groups,
to be able
types.
to group. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with baggage handlers, you can compare baggage handlers versus people that work in warehouse.
And then you can run some, you can run some cool jobs against those particular
Right, and so
sets of workers. If you need to notify them, like, hey.
When you think about how employees get injured, right?
Yeah.
So it's either a fatigue factor, so how hard did they work? It's a skill factor, are they trained properly to do that job? And then you have, what is the structural dynamics of that job? How much do they bend and twist and move during the day? And what our analytics platform allows us to do is calculate how much do they actually move, how do they move, and then we can give that data basically almost in real time back to the employee and the supervisor to make corrections.
And I think it's important part is, earlier today we talked about the closing the loop as AWS, basically getting this data out of devices into the cloud, training models there, and then making some intelligent decisions. So I think this is a great example. The more data you have, the more accurate model you can train and predict whether this activity is walking or swinging or anything else.
So let's talk about the model for instance. So is this, when you created your model, I'm assuming this is a model you all created and trained yourself?
We did. We actually are located in Clemson, South Carolina, above a pizza parlor. And so on Tuesday nights, it's dollar slice night.
Oh my God.
And so the college kids line up at Todoro's Pizza for the dollar slice. And then we go down with our sheets of paper and say, will you perform these activities? activities for us, bending, twisting, reaching,
Yeah.
climbing on a ladder, falling down, and then we train the model.
That's called
down.
crowdsourcing.
Give them a
Crowdsourcing. and,
Falling down.
and you'll love
okay.
this. We actually hand them a $30 Amazon gift card on the other
Nice.
Amazon
I was like,
to do that for
college
us.
students dreaming for their- yeah, I can see how that works.
For $1 pizza, it's
Yeah,
30 bucks.
it's really-
They-
that's why it's popular. The pizza place loves them. And it's unfortunate that you're in South Carolina and not Georgia, but I won't back a dig there. But okay, let's talk about seriously. So we talked about earlier, we were talking about like the integration with IoT Analytics and SageMaker, but I really think what's really powerful about what you're talking about is you built your own model. And you actually then took that model and the training of that model, and as you got it, and then used that with IoT Analytics. And so this, guys, this is just a great example of how, yeah, it's great if you use SageMaker, but if you have your own models, bring your own models. Look how this is actually working in an industrial scale to actually make the solution work. And I think that's a really powerful
Yeah, I
thing.
don't think you should wait, right? I mean, I think that's if you're waiting for all the libraries to be built, you
Yeah.
know, they'll come. I mean,
Yeah.
and the issue is go ahead and do it now because you can.
Yeah.
And then when the libraries come, it's just going to be an easier lift and drop right into the total ecosystem of the infrastructure. So we have built our own customized models, and that didn't slow us down. We converted last year over to the AWS, and it was really just a lift and drop of our models onto the AWS platform.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you were going to extend what you're doing right now, would you start thinking about incorporating things like Greengrass, maybe Amazon free RTOS?
I was going to ask that, yeah.
Yeah, so I do think having an operating system on a wearable is important, right? Right now, our belt operates without an operating system. One of the major reasons why you're going to want an operating system on your belt is security.
Yeah.
It provides another level of security encryption, and today's devices and how they have to talk to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or cellular, mostly on the Wi-Fi world, is going to need a second or even a third layer encryption. It's the number one thing that when we sell into a customer, it's not necessarily the infrastructure, but first of all is how am I encrypting that data? And we have to basically jump through a hoop right now to do that.
Yeah.
Once we get to an operating system like Greengrass, it's going to make it much more smoother and easier for us.
Because imagine if you extend even further and you start going towards healthcare, then it would be PHI, and you have to make sure that you adhere to all those standards. So I can see where you're starting to move towards. That's why I asked about at least the golf swing example, because it's a place where...
Somebody needs to
Oh,
practice.
okay. Cricket as well. We play that game in South Africa. You could measure your cricket swing.
So do you guys
see if
still
you-
get to play sports in South Africa if you don't have water to drink?
Oh,
They are cutting low right now
it is
over
Cape
here, yeah.
Town,
Yes.
and we are starting to mitigate the droughts and actually desalinate water. So to make sure our citizens can drink.
That's right.
yes,
Tell
yes.
him.
We also have beer.
Well, he lives in South Carolina, so
Oh, wait, was it South or North Carolina?
Actually, I live in Seattle,
Like
so
We've got an abundance of rain.
he doesn't.
actually,
More than abundance
It's
here.
like,
Yeah.
it's just, when
Yeah,
it doesn't
okay,
rain in
exactly.
Seattle, it's raining somewhere else in the world.
yes,
Yeah,
we
okay,
definitely
yeah,
have that.
exactly. Okay, so this is how you get your data to collect for your model, which is fantastic. And you said it's not running free RTOS, so you get the data into the cloud. You want to talk about how that happens for you?
Yeah, so our wearable has a payload that we basically collect the payload. It has a 1 kb payload that collects the sensor measurements in 0.1 seconds. So our motion sensors are 0.1 seconds, our location sensors are 1 second, temperature sensors are 1 second. We group that payload together and we send it in the cloud on a 1 kb payload and pipe separated each one of those sensor measurements. And from there it's deconstructed with Kinesis and then basically enhanced and featured out.
Nice. So, I mean, I think that's really powerful to think about. These devices don't have an operating system, but you're still able to get the specific payload of what we talked about these constrained devices. So earlier, we were talking about the fact that there's these constrained devices, and they may not have all the bells and whistles, but you can still take this data, aggregate it, and then make it meaningful because the raw data is now able to be filtered and processed. So I think your story is excellent.
Yeah, and it's a sophisticated payload too. It's not just a one sensor type of payload, right?
Right, yeah.
It is basically, from 9 sensors that actually have about 24 features to them. And so it's not just a simple payload, you're just sending one. You're sending a lot of data information in one grouping out there that has to, basically then, be intaked and then processed.
And one important thing you didn't mention, but I think it's super cool as well. So as any other IoT device, this can go offline. So the internet connection can be down. So you guys have actually local memory as well. So you can buffer for a certain time and then upload afterwards. So that's coming back to the problem of late data in IoT in general. The data can come next day, and that's absolutely normal.
Yeah, and so Rudy probably going to talk about the level of quality of service on MQTT.
Oh yes, the fact that we're using MQTT 3.1 at AWS, which has a few caveats, and one of them being that we only support quality of service 0 and 1, which is delivering your messages at least once or once. We don't do 2 and up, but we have a nice thing called device shadow, which allows you to actually mitigate that.
And it works fine for us. And there's not an issue with that service level whatsoever. What we do is we write a simple firmware code on our belt to say if the radio signal is stronger than X, we send the data. If it's not stronger than X, then we hold the data till we get the right radio signal.
So for those of you guys who are new to AWS IoT, since you brought it up, Rudy, let's talk about the device shadow and what it does. So the fact that, he made a point where what if you are in an environment where, your quality service needs to be higher than 1, how do you mitigate that with using it? So let's talk about what the device shadow is for you guys out there that are new to AWS IoT.
So the device shadow itself is a JSON-based document that represents the state of your IoT device. Now this is going from both ways, from the device itself and from the application interacting with it. You've got 2 states, you've got the reported and the desired. The reported is the state that's coming from the device. The other way around is if the application is to change it. So the example we like to use is, say you have a light bulb and it's blue, right? When it goes to the device state, it's reporting, the device shadow, it's reporting that it's blue. When it goes up to the application says, what color is the bulb? It's blue. But then you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I'm feeling a bit more down, I want to change it to red, get a bit, emo, no, I'm joking. So we set that application, we tell the application to set the device's color, or the light bulb's color, to red. That sets the desired state, and that gets propagated down to the device. And what's nice is that even if it's offline, it'll wait until that device is back online, propagate it, the device changes its color, and resends the reported to say, I am red. And that's the beauty of the device shadow.
And the reason why I wanted you to actually explain that, because I get this question a lot about, that's great, what if I go offline? Or how do I track the changes of the delta between what state my device was in, or the sensor, and what it was in, and how I want to change it back, and how do I track that? And the device shadow gives you that ability. So I get that question a lot from you guys. So I put him on the spot because he left my name tag, so he deserves it. I'm not going to let that go.
Quality of service.
Yes.
More than 0 and 1.
So let's continue on with your solution. This is fantastic. And so this wearable is in a belt form, you said?
That's right.
He's actually wearing it right
now. There it is.
Did you not see it? That's the belt, that's the battery. Which is something that you've mentioned before, that the battery is one of the most constrained things on your device. So it wraps right around.
Yeah, so when you're designing... when you're designing the wearable device...
We did this earlier, his pants stayed up then.
We're going to hopefully stay up. So when you design a wearable and you're designing an IoT device, you're really balancing battery power, processor, memory, and radio. And you're just doing a trade-off between the two and trying to figure it out.
And we've got the nice belt. Only $29.99. If you call now, you can buy 2 for $30.
This is why
Act today.
Don't let the on camera,
and then you have a place for your name tag.
Yeah.
No. So in here is 8 sensors, and then we bring the GPS antenna to the outside to get a good view of the sky. And then, and Sergej is right, all the batteries are actually located right here, so we can use the entire real estate where, most cell phones or IoT devices are really constrained by what's the device being held into, where all the electronics are. We actually move the batteries away from the device to power that. So, and we have a processor on board. We have the some memory and SD card.
Can you replace the battery on these devices?
You could if you wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you extend the battery to basically
just be like the whole
like
belt.
one big battery?
Yeah.
So you never charge it.
The TSA might love you.
This is why you
have to check that for the lithium ion. Is that a storage
It's a
battery?
SmartBelt, I tell you. This is the battery.
This is why
And the only problem
you
is
have to monitor you guys.
it serves
Look,
two purposes, to hold up
this
your
is why I
pants
can't let
and
you
the
guys
belt.
on camera. I warned them, I said, do not let these three on camera. They didn't listen to me, and look where we are. Okay, seriously, back to the subject at hand. So,
So Wi-Fi radio, you can right now it's vibrating. It has a haptic response if somebody actually bends more than 60. So it has a processor on the edge. And then it has an alert button, so you can actually bypass the cloud. It gives you a vibrate that the message has been sent, goes to the cloud, and it contacts your supervisor, so you don't have to go through the IoT engine if you want to do an emergency type of kind of a call or an alert to someone. So there's ways you can do, so just because you've built your IoT infrastructure, you want to send all your data through it, there's certain data that you just want to say, hey, I got to get that message out right away. I don't want it to delay and that message has got to go. There's a way to do that as well.
So somebody on Twitch, it's RBG Play, says it looks really heavy. What's the weight of it?
It's about 9 ounces, 10 ounces.
9-10 ounces. And here's the thing that I wanted to, so for you guys that are just joining us to see the questions on Twitch, you're maybe a little confused about it. So this is an industrial product. If you're working in a factory or you're doing, laborious type of work and you're bending and doing a lot, they want to prevent you guys from having injuries. So it can report, hey, with this type of bend on a consistent basis, there may be an injury, or if there is an injury, it can alert your supervisor. So again, trying to keep you healthy and your back healthy. Health is good. This is another implementation of that. So someone asked about, what was the purpose of walking around with a radio all day on your back? This is actually for a specific purpose of making sure your workers that are bending other heavy labor, that we can keep them safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And regarding the radio, you mentioned the Wi-Fi is low-powered as well.
That is right. One of the other big considerations on, at least a wearable on the body, is the amount of radiation that a device emits.
Especially that region, too.
That might be even more sensitive. And so so all these are FCC tested and approved, but basically you have to really tune down your Wi-Fi radio in order for these type of devices to be able to send the data out and pass your FCC certification.
Okay.
So I'm getting another question, and we kind of talked about this before, but I want to reiterate about it. So Chatty Laddie asked, okay, with all this data coming across from the belt and everything else, how do you make this actionable? Who looks at the data within a company? And then we kind of answered this, but I want to do it just one more time. I just mentioned to her that we're talking about IoT analytics, and he's going to talk about this one more time about how we get this data. And this is why we're talking about how great having the IoT, AWS IoT and IoT analytics merged together, so that you don't have one person trying to look at this data and make it actionable. But take it away.
Yeah, so the first thing, it is all the data is callable by APIs. And so you can use the Amazon APIs and you can call the data, and the developers can develop whatever scorecards, reports they want to make. We provide a base scorecard out of from both Jupyter and another organization called HighCharts that we basically present as our presentation layer. And so the other big thing about actionable data, and this is really the hard part, one of the knocks on IoT is you produce 50 megabits of data a day. You enhance it, enrich it, and that turns into about 110 megabits a day.
Right.
Okay.
How much of that data is actually actionable? Right. How do you find those zebras amongst the horses? So the supervisor's not saying, or the employee's saying, that's great, you just gave me a day that I just did 8,000 steps and I bent 250 times, so what?
Right.
Right, and so that's the other piece about the analytics, is you got to go ahead and actually put another layer of analytics on there to find the bad events or the events that you should be coaching up and training up. And again, that's what we ended up doing with our data, is we look for the zebras amongst the horses. So when I talk about bends, I want to talk about bends that have twists that they accelerated up. And what that really means is if I went like this and I jerked up,
Yeah.
and so now I'm putting not only stress on one vertebrae, but I'm making it in a jerking fashion. And so you want to be able to show those bends to the employee and say, that's not the way to do it.
Right.
Let's lift with our knees, or let's go to the supervisor so we can coach, and then really go back behind and really check the training.
Yeah, and I think what this is impactful, if anyone knows, I have family and friends that are in the medical industry. They always talk about preventative measures and how much more expensive it gets after you get sick. So we obviously want doctors to treat us when we get sick, but how great the preventative measures are. And this is one of those things, I think, how proactive you're really being about preventing some of those major injuries that people will have to live with for life.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, oh, that's the big brother thing. Oh, you're just monitoring all the time. And good companies, and I always tell this story about Febreze air freshener. Febreze came on the market thinking they were going to sell their product to a bunch of smokers and people who own cats.
Okay.
And what they found out is they sold it to the people that cleaned their houses and wanted the award and reward of a clean house by smelling Febreze. What we find with our technology are the companies that care about their employees. They don't look at it as a monitoring device or an IoT. So they look at it and saying, this employee is going to work for me for life, 10, 15, 20 years, and by the time they hit 45, 55, 60 years old, they don't want to be saying, oh, my aching back.
Right.
And so your point about prevention. Okay. And so, the obvious business case is always going to the companies that have really poor safety records, all that. It's really the companies that care the most about their employees. They're really looking to kind of ensure that employee will be healthy, not when they're just 25 and 30 years old and they have a strong back, but when they're 45 and 50 and have been doing this job for a long time, they can go ahead and make the changes and the fixes before it actually makes a damage to their vertebrae.
Reduce the wear and tear on the body.
Yep,
which is
exactly.
We all are looking for more time, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, so hopefully, Chetty, that answers your question. As part of the solution, which is what we're talking about.
I thought your name was Chetty.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
hey, Chatty Laddie
Chatty.
Chatty Laddie is who asked me the question.
is that one of my friends?
Did your mom call in again?
I never should have told you guys about this last
Kim was saying on the chat, wearables are really becoming much more important in the industry and much more known in the industry. And so these are just other ways that these wearables can be used in different types of industries, both for prevention and for health. So again, yes, if we're getting the data, but now you can filter through some of what I'll call the noise and get to the core of this, which is what you're doing.
The essence of the Internet of Things is
Yes.
that you're getting these things, getting meaningful data from them, putting it into the cloud, and then running intelligence on it.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it's a great example as well to explain to people why we think that number of IoT devices will explode. Basically, if every worker has this kind of belt, you can do the math, right? You will have hundreds of thousands of people wearing, and basically that's all the data you have to process.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, this one protects the lower lumbar.
Yeah.
You're going to get one that protects the knee,
Right.
one that protects the wrist, one that protects the shoulder, and ultimately you'll need some hubbing point to Bluetooth all this information back out.
And then you'll
you're dealing
cyber.
Smart clothing.
You're saying I would not have gone through, let's say, 2 surgeries for my tearing of my, So I've torn my ACL, I've torn it. So I wouldn't have, when I was running, I wouldn't have kept going. It's like, no, stop, you've torn something. I would have been dumb if I had this device, is what you're saying.
All I'm saying is that you're going to see a proliferation of IoT devices that people haven't even thought of the business cases yet.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed that people are coming up to us and saying, hey, can you think about this? Have you thought about that? And you're like, oh wow. And not even to say put this on a body, assets that are being tracked out there, and how do you use that same technology, the cloud, ring fencing, geofencing people in, what does a breadcrumb report mean, and tracking, understanding where assets are, where people are, and they have the right skill level to do things. I mean, so I do see it's a heck of a lot more than IoT, what we're talking about here and how devices will proliferate.
So
Okay.
we're gonna wrap it up, but I want you guys to just kind of, if there's nothing else, if you guys take nothing away from this session, I'm gonna put you on the spot because I don't have a name tag.
So think of it like this, right? IoT is exploding. It's a case that there are more and more devices coming online per day, and because of that, you need a platform that's going to handle the ingestion and gaining meaningful insights on that data. And that's why the AWS IoT ecosystem itself is so poised. The AWS IoT Core, we've got analytics, we've got Greengrass, Amazon Free RTOS. You get all of these options that are for you, the customers, to build awesome products like the one from Eric Martinez here, CEO and founder of Modjoul.
Website
www.
And we're commercial. Guys, thank you so much for joining. If you want to get started, please feel free to tweet me at TaraW. Check out the blog post on IoT Analytics Free RTOS that I've written and then that the great blog team has written. And again, just follow us on the Twitch. we will be back closing out the day. So join us in a sec. Thanks, guys.